You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senate?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody, you might as well buy them from us and help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is episode 234. Today is January 6th. Year of our Lord, 2025. And today's an important day. January 6th is an iconic moment in recent American history for a number of reasons, some of which we're going to talk about here today. But for me personally, it was the day that I really started to have whatever rose-colored glasses still were there in politics. A lot of people in the Republican Party, in the MAGA movement, even in the Donald Trump's close support base, jumped ship after January 6th. Some of us joined the ship after January 6th, and I was one of those people. After January 6th, I started to see politics different, and I mean. When I say politics, everything is politics, right? I mean, at a level, it's politics all the way down, right? Like it's turtles all the way down. Everything is political, especially today in our society. But just in general, things become political. When I'm talking about politics, I mean the politics that you see on television. I mean the DC politics. I mean the politics of the commercial Republican Party, Democrat Party theater. That when I say politics, that's what I'm talking about. And after January 6th, my entire thinking about politics changed dramatically. And it opened me up, it opened my mind to the MAGA movement, to Donald Trump. Now, all of my critics, even in the Republican Party, are going to use this to say, see, this guy's crazy. He said, January 6th brought him into American politics and into the Republican Party. No, the George Floyd situation brought me into politics, and I saw how corrupt the Democrat liberal establishment was down at the grassroots community activist level, and the duplicity and the lies and the manipulation and the exploitation of black men, dead black men. That brought me into politics. January 6th brought me into the MAGA movement. And the reason why, we could circle the wagons. We could talk until we're blue in the face about what happened on that day and Ashley Babbitt and the comparisons to the Black Lives Matter protests. And, were there federal agencies involved and agitators on that day and some of those theories. We could do that all day long. And some of that is fun and some of it is interesting and some of it can feel satisfying as a citizen who has lost much of their political capital and power under this illegitimate establishment and regime. Some of that we can do, some of that we will do, some of it we've already done. But the closer and closer we get to the brink of World War III, the destruction of our country and our citizenship, the more I want to talk signal and not noise. And the signal of January 6th that really resonated with me had nothing to do with the people. As strange as that may sound, it had nothing to do with the people who were out there on the day of January 6th, the people who protested, the people who protested peacefully, the people who, eventually stormed the Capitol. It had nothing to do with contrasting that to Black Lives Matter protests and the people that were out there. What it really spoke to was how our elected officials and the establishment that they've come to represent view the people as a whole. And there is something categorically un-American about the message that was sent in the wake of January 6th. Across party lines, across the establishment, mainstream accepted media. And the message was very simple. The message is, if there's cheating, if in fact the election is fraudulent, if in fact there is evidence that there's been rigging in our elections, if in fact there are elected officials who should be held responsible for undermining the integrity of our elections and our citizenship, our vote, if in fact it is the case that all of that has some validity to it, under no circumstances should anybody who is a represented, elected official or representative be held accountable for that, be in danger. No matter what it really said to the people, what it really said to Americans is, we can do whatever we want. In theory, we can do whatever we want. I mean, when it boils right down to it, if your elected officials don't have to uphold the integrity of elections, or if they don't even have to be, somewhat concerned or conscious or considerate of how the people feel about the integrity of their elections, what they're really telling you is, we can do whatever we want to do. That's how I saw it. As an objective third party, somebody more apolitical when it all went down, and watching both sides of the political aisle, watching the mainstream media, watching what we had come through with the COVID narrative and how corrupt that seemed on face value. And here we have people who have every legitimate right as American citizens to question the integrity of their elections. Not only do they have the legitimate right based on the 2020 election itself and all of the fraud and corruption that was proven to be there in the 2020 election, not only do they have the right on that basis alone, they have the right based on the fact that American elections have had insecurities for a long time. They have the right based on that. Even if you're not a Donald Trump supporter, even if you weren't a Joe Biden supporter, let's say you don't identify or associate with the Republican Party or Democrat Party at all. Let's say you're a true blue blood independent, or you're apolitical. You don't even get involved in politics. You as an American citizen have every right to be angry, to be frustrated, to be skeptical about a lack of integrity in our elections, because it undermines the value of citizenship. It undermines the fundamental of American citizenship. And I think our elites and our elected officials and the people who are involved in this establishment status quo, the purveyors of this corrupt, centrist-driven status quo there in D.C. and all across the country, all around the world, I think they're so caught up in their own narrative, their own vision of the world, their own storyline. I think they're so caught up in the lies they tell to preserve the status quo in the narrative, they lose sight of the simple things like people have a right to be pissed off if there's even a shred of evidence that there's a lack of security or integrity in our elections. People have every right to be pissed off. And what the establishment told you was, in theory, if our elections are rigged, if our elections are insecure, if our elections lack integrity, what are you mad for? What are you mad about? You're an American citizen. You reap the benefits of the printing press and the dollar empire and the Pax Americana military-industrial complex, medical-industrial complex, media-industrial industrial complex, Ponzi scheme and Fugazi that we got working here in this country. You reap the benefits. You're the benefactor. The baseline net worth and wealth has risen to a level where even the poorest person in America is wealthier than most people throughout human history. And you should be grateful for that. And in some sense, you should be grateful for that. But in another sense, in the sense of our founding fathers, were they grateful that they were alive? Were they grateful that they had been introduced to the gospel and to the teachings of Jesus Christ and God? Were they grateful to be in a new land? Were they grateful to have all? Of course, they were grateful, but they strive for better. To strive for better is in many ways a duty and a calling of the divine gift of consciousness that we've been given as human beings. So yeah, we strive to be better. While we are grateful and thankful here, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the New Year, we are thankful and grateful, absolutely. But we never stop striving to be better. Because if you stop striving to be better, essentially what you're saying is, I'm perfect. I'm good. There's nothing wrong with me. I got it all figured out. Just naturally, a humble man is going to strive to be better. A humble person is going to strive to improve. Now, some people will weaponize that and use a natural strive to improve to justify technocracy and transhumanism and say, yeah, we got to figure out how to, travel to Mars, or else, we're not striving for anything. And we have to temper that, and we have to be vigilant and keep a check on that, because you can go too far. But striving to be better is not a bad thing. And on that basis alone, the American people have a fundamental right to be upset if they feel that their elections have been stolen. And so those people that showed up on the day of January 6th at the Capitol have had more than enough evidence, had more than enough reason, had more than enough justification to be upset, to be angry. Way more than enough. And what was the narrative? The narrative is Donald Trump is an outlaw. He's an outlier. He's an outcast. And by way of all of you that support him are outliers, outcasts. You people are all outlaws. You're all criminals. And the funny thing about that, whether it's Benny Thompson or Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or AOC or even some of the Republicans, Mitch McConnell, pick somebody, pick one. It doesn't matter who. It's a long lineup of them all. No matter who it was, they came back with the same narrative. We the government, we stand above you all. We're above you. You got no right to what they really wanted to say was, you have no right to show up and even question us, but they couldn't say that. And you better believe that's what they're saying behind closed doors. That's what they were saying about the January 6th protesters and the Donald Trump supporters in the wake of it, subtly, anyway. If you support Donald Trump at all, that's what the mainstream media and the Democrats and liberals and whoever else is a part of that accepted narrative ecosystem, that's what they were saying. That's what they've been saying the whole time. They're still saying it. If you support Donald, now they're trying to back off of it softly because they lost, and they know in order to win ever again, they're going to have to correct some errors that they made. Part of their error was this narrative. But in general, their sort of pompous, arrogant default response was, if you support Donald Trump at all, you're crazy. You're stupid. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're a criminal. You support a criminal. You might as well be a criminal yourself. You support a convicted rapist. You might as well be one yourself. And that is the narrative. That was the impulse, and it was the impulse even back in 2020. In 2021, I'm sorry. That was the impulse then, and I'm watching it. I'm sitting at home, and I'm thinking to myself, well, Donald Trump aside, MAGA movement aside, Republican, Democrat aside, what does it mean to be an American citizen? And the basic rights that I had just watched people cry and scream and shout and protest and fight for after George Floyd, all of a sudden become null and void when the other side has grievances. And so American citizenship is a partisan identity. And if you really believe in this country, if you really believe in the red, white, and blue, if you really believe in our Constitution and our basic rights, our basic human rights, our basic legal rights, or our basic legal standing as human beings, if you really believe in those things, then American citizenship is not a partisan issue. It becomes partisan when one party basically says there is no such thing as American citizenship. Citizenship doesn't exist. You're a global citizen. Borders don't exist. Nations don't exist. All there is technology and the global ambition to rule the people, or to have government that is all powerful. If you have a party like the Democrat Party has become, who says that, then I guess American citizenship does become a partisan issue. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the left, the Democrat Party, the liberals, the mainstream media industrial complex has hung its hat on the civil rights movement and this lie that all of their efforts are to uphold the basic rights of blacks, of the LGBTQ, of women, of Jews, and any other minority group or marginalized person out there. That has been their narrative. And they use the United States Constitution. They use our basic human rights. They use the American identity to make that claim. And then they turn around and they denounce or they rebuff American citizenship as a general idea. Okay, that's hypocritical in and of itself. But to take it so far as to protest these ideas, as to show up and say, we are going to fight until we get justice, no peace, to use that citizenship, those ideas, to take it that far, only to have people from the opposing side of the political aisle show up with very legitimate grievances that have great historical merit to them. And to totally dismiss them is one of the most dishonest things I've ever seen, read, heard in my entire life. In the entirety of human history, it's one of the most deceitful, dishonest things I think I've ever seen. Of course, the January 6ers had every right to show up to the Capitol with their grievances and their concerns about the legitimacy of our elections. Legitimacy, by the way, integrity, security, by the way, that still hasn't been solved. And it was the one high point of my campaign, my Senate run against against Amy Klobuchar, was getting her in a room in a debate and asking her the simple question, why did you say in 2018 that the machines aren't secure? Amy, you and Kamala Harris both said in 2018 that the machines are not secure. They did an entire demonstration in front of a Senate committee. Okay, they brought in experts. They brought in hackers to prove how easy it is to hack the machines, that the machines weren't secure. So much so that both of them were advocates for backup paper ballots in every single state of the union. And I asked her right there on live radio in a debate, can you answer that question for me? Why did you guys say that the elections weren't secure? And she couldn't answer. She shook. She waffled. She waffled. She waffled. She did the DC dip and circle jerk that they all do. But the video shows. The video shows how uncomfortable she was when I posed the question. And I bring that up not to, beat my chest and, oh, I told you so, I got Amy Klobuchar's I got you moment. That's not the point. The point is, if the elections lack security, if the elections lack integrity, if the machines can be hacked, then the January 6ers are vindicated. They were justified. They are vindicated, and they should be pardoned. Because if we do not, and this is an open-ended issue, it is incumbent upon our elected officials, president, vice president, Senate, House, governors, everybody in between. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that the people have faith in our elections, not by force, not by bullying them, not by telling them that they have to have faith. You can't make somebody have faith. You have to show somebody, you have to prove to somebody that they can have faith. The only thing we have blind faith in, we are forced to have blind faith in, like I've said before, is Jesus Christ and God. And even Jesus Christ came and performed miracles just to give you some proof. Even Jesus Christ came and raised Lazarus from the dead because even Jesus understood, hey, there's a part of human beings that's going to need some concrete proof to go on. But yet we as the American government, we believe that the American people, the American citizens should have blind faith in our institutions, should have blind faith in our elections or anything else, when all the evidence is to the contrary and the corruption is up to our eyeballs? The audacity of it, the arrogance of it. And to make matters worse, and this really just fried my circuits. To make matters worse, ahead of January 6th, which is still a very sensitive and touchy date, because there are still people who are being persecuted, wrongly persecuted for the events that took place that day. Now, did some people take it too far? I would say, yeah, in my opinion. Was I there? Do I know everything that went on and how it all unfolded? Absolutely not. I couldn't be there. Do I think just on face value? And I said this from my earliest days on War Room, is we got to be vigilant. And one thing that I don't like about the MAGA movement, our movement, the America First movement, the right, the Republican Party, and even I'm talking about the most passionate amongst us. I love the passion. It doesn't get more passionate than me in many regards. I'm one of the most passionate people in the movement, which is why people gotta tiptoe around. They don't necessarily want to be associated because you don't know what Royce is going to say. Because when people are passionate and authentic and genuine, they say what the fuck they mean and they mean what they say. It's hard to predict what they're going to say. I mean, we don't really toe the line. We don't paint inside the lines. We don't color inside the lines. So I'm passionate, but there is a level of temperance that we have to have as well. And the reason why is because no matter where you are politically today, you and your forebears, your fathers, your forefathers, we all contributed to letting our government get to the place that it is today. We contributed. We allowed our government to get too big and too powerful and too corrupt. We, the American people, if you believe in a 1776 American identity and citizenship, then you have to take some accountability. As an individual, as communities, as states, as an entire country, we have to take accountability in how we let our government get here. And we didn't let our government get here strictly through tyranny. Now, if we let our government get here strictly through tyranny, then break out the pitchforks and the torches, and it's time to revolt. But that's not the case. And if we're not honest about that, then we're not the MAGA movement. We're not the America First movement. We can't hang our hat on that American flag and those ideas and that citizenship. We didn't get here strictly through tyranny. In many ways, we got here through complacency, and we also got here through complicity. We were complacent and we were complicit. We were complicit with the rise of industrialization. We were complicit in globalization. We were complicit in the technology. We were complicit in giving our freedom over for security. We were complicit in the narrative. We were complicit in the Patriot Act. We are now going to start to be complicit with artificial intelligence. So there was a lot of complicity with how we got here. And because we were complicit in many ways, it's improper and it's intemperate for us to storm the front gates and say, this is unacceptable and it's all, no. The first thing you better do is a 100-day sit-in. Just for your own sacred honor, right? Just for your own acknowledgement that this government and where this country's gotten didn't get here strictly through tyranny. Because in all actuality, if I'm one of those elected representatives, I'm kind of sitting back, with a similar, with the reverse and saying, wait a minute, guys, I thought we all were in on this deal together. You got your 401ks and your pensions, and you got your iPhones. And the streets are safer than they've ever been. And violent crime has gone down it's going back up. But just generally speaking, violent crime is down versus what it was in the 90s or the 80s. People are living longer than ever. People are getting cancer now and surviving. The antibiotics are working on your, like I said, your common bacterial pneumonia, right? You're showing up to the ER. We're stopping heart attacks. We're hitting you with the glycerin, and we're able to stop a heart attack and put a stent in, and you're able to survive another, 5 to 10 years, maybe another 30. Who knows? So this is all working. This is all working pretty well. So what are you all so upset about? I mean, that's how they're thinking. That's how our elected officials are sitting there thinking. They're going, that's how they keep raising the debt ceiling. I mean, that's the mentality. That's the justification. This is all going pretty well. Things are pretty good. And in many cases, they're right. Things are pretty good. The question is, how good could they be and how good do they need to be? And if we trade the security and the pretty well for corruption, then the whole thing is undermined. And there is a part of the American citizen spirit that understands that can identify and feels that. And that's the rage that those January 6th protesters had. Things are pretty good for some, for the elite more than us. I mean, us common folks down here at the bottom of the trough, we're struggling to put $500 cash together in a crisis. So things are pretty well for some, and they are dire straits for others. And in that, we still have to acknowledge and accept, you want us to accept, the corruption in an illegitimate election and regime. And so the January 6th, and my point, I'm a pretty straight shooter. I'm as objective as they come, I think. I think before the MAGA movement goes balls to the walls and we start talking about 1776 and well-armed militias, there better be some 100-day sit-ins for our own sacred honor. To prove to ourselves, and part of it is to prove, I take it to sports again, part of showing up every day, working out, is not just about the skills that you learn or the reps that you get in whatever it is that you're trying to do or improve on. Part of it is, am I willing, me showing up every day proves to myself, gives myself the sort of inner confidence and surety that I need that this is what I really want to do. And as I start to build that momentum of showing up that way every day, the option to cop out and run dissipates. That's shoring up that foundation. I showed up 90 days in a row already. What am I going to do? Quit now? No, I'm showing up 91. I'm showing up 92. Before you know, you get to 100, you get to 120, you get to 300. That's how you get to that 10,000 hours of that expertise that they talk about but part of it is just showing up. Well, in politics, we don't really think that way. We think it's supposed to all happen at once the way we want it to. No, we have a grievance. There was corruption. The government's too big. It's corrupt. Our elections don't have integrity. We're going to show up on January 6th and voila, okay, the problem's going to be solved. It don't work like that. It don't work like that. We have to have, and this is still going to be in front of us because all the issues are nowhere near sorted out. All the hard answers are actually still in front of us. Technology, military, the scope of government, educate, all of it's still in front of us. But before we go to full-blown revolt, there better be some 100-day sit-ins to prove to ourselves that we are who we say we are. We still need to prove that we are who we say we are, with all due respect to everybody out there, okay? Now, table that. That's just to put in the back of our minds for a date in the future where it may come to pass that we need to remember, because it may come to pass. 100-day sit-ins first before you revolt. Prove to yourself that you have the actual determination, the determination, the sense of self-sacrifice and sacred honor to sacrifice the convenience in your own life for whatever it is that you say that you believe in or that you want to change. Are you willing to give up a fair share of whatever's going on in your own life on a daily basis for whatever it is that you say that you want. And if you're not, then you got to put on trial what you're really doing out there. Okay? You may be right. There may be corruption. There may be a lack of integrity in elections. But what are you doing out there? Is this just an off gas? Is this just a way to offload all the frustration that you maybe harbor in your own life, your own resents individually, and now you're projecting them onto your politics? Or do you actually understand the fundamental? Because if you understand the fundamental, then the MAGA movement wouldn't need a fraudulent election to start to show up in the streets and say, enough is fucking enough. You wouldn't need a fraudulent election for that because the government's already out of control. Like Alex Jones said, if you're going to let public schools dress up fully grown 250-pound men like space demons and let them get close to your children and read your children books, you all deserve to die. Name another animal species, name another animal in the animal kingdom that would let a grown man dressed up like a 250-pound space demon get up close to his children. Only in America, only in the West, only in modern society would any species in the animal kingdom allow a 300-pound man dressed up in horns like a space demon get right up close to its child and read it a story. You should be protesting based on that, okay? And I'm not getting down on the January 6ers. Like I said, they need to be pardoned. I'm trying to temper us and understand where there is some rightful criticism for what happened on January 6th on our side. The scam here is they painted these people to be criminals. Nothing that anybody did on January 6th was more criminal than what the elected officials of this country have been doing for generations. Nothing that anybody did on January 6th, 2021 even comes close to the criminality and corruption of this establishment. It doesn't even register on the scale. And for that reason, and that reason alone, the disgrace of awarding George Soros a Presidential Medal of Freedom a week before January 6th is the biggest slap in the face that I have ever even heard of in the history of American politics. It doesn't get any more disgraceful. Honest to God, it doesn't get worse than that. It doesn't get worse than giving George Soros the highest honor a week before January 6th. I mean, you gotta be shitting me. I mean, it is a blatant smack in the face. These people they don't know when to quit. They refuse to quit. They refuse to give up. They will not surrender. And you all need to understand, when you see something like it tells you who these people are and just how big of a fight we're in for. I mean, to award George, I mean, come on. As if Amy Klobuchar and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the rest of them taking pictures with little Alex Soros isn't bad enough. They awarded George Soros the Presidential Medal of Freedom right there in front of the entire American public. And we're supposed to, what? In what world do people think George Soros is a good person? It actually baffles. It's actually mind-blowing. I actually sit back sometimes and go, what echo chamber or zeitgeist must you be in to have any sort of even remote idea that George Soros is a good person? To where I mean, even if you're just one of those people who's like, maybe he's on the fence. I don't really know too much, but a Presidential Medal of Freedom? Are you kidding me? It's a slap in the face. It's a thumb in the eye to the MAGA movement. It's a slap in the face to the American people. It's a slap in the face to free people all over the world, really. Because the George Soros types, their ambitions extend far beyond the borders of America. Now, they got a special eye for America, but their ambitions and their corruption and their wickedness, it's well far beyond. I mean, this is the globalist modus operandi. Their corruption is widespread. It's global. And the people all around the world suffer for it. They suffer through it. Like the Ukrainians that had a war provoked right there and used their home country, their home territory as a staging for military capacities, to measure military capacities. That's the type of sick, wicked results and consequences that come to bear on everyday people by the decisions that the George Soros types make. And they awarded him a Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I guess it shouldn't shock us because Joe Biden thinks the exact same way. The American people should be irate. And here's another, again, I will say it again, clear as day. My involvement in the MAGA movement was because I saw the January 6th protesters. And I thought to myself, now, whether I agree or disagree with every single political opinion that these people have, I respect and admire their willingness to show up. Their willingness to show up at the front door, at the doorstep of power, the people who actually make decisions, and say, enough is enough. Because a lot of people aren't even willing to do that. And so there's this fine line that we walk when you talk about leadership or people who have podcasts, commentators, and the whole people run for office candidates. There's a fine line we walk in there's kind of two camps. There's the people who want to be involved in politics, and there's the people who don't care. The people who don't care, I mean, it's just like, how much time do you spend trying to get them to care? If they don't care, they don't care. And so a lot of times your criticism ends up falling with the people who are actually involved, but they're not involved enough. It's just like sports. It's the same thing. There's people who say, I didn't want to come out and play on the team. Okay, well, I'm not going to spend any time coaching you. You don't play on the fucking team. You're not a part of the game. You're in the stands. You're in the peanut gallery. You cheer. You're just here for the spectacle. So I'm not spending a lot of time explaining or coaching the game to you. But if you're on the team and you want to play on the team, you're the one who ends up getting the politics is the same way. And I say that because my criticism of the Republican Party or the conservative movement or the MAGA movement or the America First movement has always been, we have allowed the left to dominate grassroots street activism. You could come up with all the excuses you want. You could say, oh, well, Black Lives Matter, they have time to protest because they don't have jobs or they're on welfare, or you can make any excuse you want. And part of the reason why I think that I'm fit to lead and I can really help the movement is because when you come from the sports, but there ain't no fucking excuse. Oh, well, this team is beating us because they got better gyms than we do. They got better facilities. They're able to practice more than us. Look at their sneakers and their uniforms fit better. Or their coach gets paid more, so they're able to get a better game. None of that fucking matters. The ball is going up. Somehow, both teams, we ended up at the same gym at the same time on the schedule, playing for the same end result. Who's going to put up more points than the other? There ain't no excuse. There's only how hard you're willing to play. And guess what? They may shoot better. They may have better facilities. They may have a better coach. They may have better circumstances. Mommy and daddy may both be home. They may have had a good hot meal last night. They may have had 3 square meals last night. So what? How hard are you going to play? How hard do you want it? And that's what I mean when I say 100-day sit-ins before we revolt, before we ever think about revolt. How bad do we really want it? But at least when I saw January 6th, I said, here's some people that actually willing to show up. And I got to tip my hat and hold that in its rightful place. And they were treated like criminals. On face value, how dare you show up to the doorstep of power and question the legitimacy of our rule, the legitimacy of our reign, the legitimacy of our institutions, of our process, our legitimacy. How dare you question us? There's nothing more un-American than that. That is the most anti-American. The response of our elected officials and this political establishment, the mainstream media, the response to January 6th shows how anti-American this establishment has become. They believe they're above the people, and they say it. You know, all of the explanations of Donald Trump's victory, you know, is always harkens back to, oh, well, you know, it's the people who aren't college educated, or it's, you know, it's white men who make under this amount. I mean, it's all classism, really. It's all rooted in classism. These people are stupid. They didn't go to college. They weren't, you know, educated by the liberal order. They don't have the liberal order view of things. So they're stupid. And are some people stupid? Yeah. Yeah, there's some stupid people out there. I've met them. But not everybody. Not the majority. The majority of people are fine, good, you know, wholesome, humble, kind-hearted American citizens that just want to have a country and be a citizen. It's that simple. And so, yeah, they want elections that are secure, that they can believe are secure. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing terroristic about that. There's nothing crazy or psychotic about that whatsoever. And the greatest sign, and this is another great contradiction of the left, and you know, they act like any political issue that they have is the most important political issue in history. So whatever issue, everybody should be willing to go to the mat, should be willing to go all out for that issue. But as soon as it's somebody else who wants a basic issue that opposes them, all of a sudden they're crazy. And hey, I get it. You know, gay people don't want to be persecuted. Okay, I get it. You're a citizen. You got a right to do what you want to do in your home. I get it. You don't want to be, you know, rounded up as gay people and carted off to some gulag. I get it. Okay. Women don't want to be treated as property. They don't want to be treated as second class. I get it. I get it. Black people don't want to be treated, you know, under the, you know, tyranny of racism and you know, the sort of social Darwinists. You know, these people are better than those people. So, and it comes into play in the legal system and in the. I get it. I get it. And some of those grievances are legitimate. And some of those grievances need to play out. Some of those grievances, you know, deserve to have people stand up and say, hey, this ain't right. I'm all good with that. What I'm not okay with is as soon as some patriots with some red, white, and blue, with some American flags, with some Donald Trump signs, as soon as they show up to say, wait a minute, are our elections even square? All of a sudden, these people have lost their mind. No, hold on. Wait a second. Wait a minute. If our elections aren't secure, then the basis for us to argue about any of the other issues don't even count anymore. And that's what we have to start to understand. And that's why it's so vital that we reintroduce basic American civics into our schools. You can't fight a fight about human rights or racial inequality or gender inequality, as loaded as that term has become. But even that, okay, you know, you can't even start to fight those fights if you don't have a foundation of American citizenship and a respect and value of the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. You can't even start to actually have those conversations if you don't come from a place where you understand why those rights have become the standard, the expectation, why it's right to expect those rights as a standard and expectation. You can't be an activist. You can't be a political activist. You can't be a freedom fighter. You can't be a justice warrior if you don't understand the basic fundamentals of citizenship. And now some people have really been caught in a political zeitgeist and culture where they actually don't understand the fundamentals of citizenship and how important it is and how you can't really have a cogent and cohesive or coherent argument or fight for justice if you don't understand those things. Some people actually don't understand citizenship. The top, the George Soroses of the world understand what citizenship is. And they understand as they try to devalue and delegitimize and destroy the idea of citizenship itself while simultaneously waging a war based on basic human rights. They know it's a fundamental contradiction. They know it's going to cause people to have a schism in the mind, and they know it's going to create psychopaths like we're seeing start to walk around and show themselves today. They know that's going to be the result. That's the game they're playing. That is the game they have set out to play, and the President of the United States just awarded this man a Medal of Freedom. They know that if you say there is no such thing as a nation, there is no such thing as borders, there is no such thing as citizenship, they know there is no real solid sort of anchor to be able to wage any real political activism. And the political activism has nowhere to go but to become this esoteric, fictitious sort of fake cosplay and theater of which everybody loses their mind. Eventually, everybody becomes manic. Everybody becomes erratic in their emotions. Everybody becomes intemperate in their responses to things that happen in our society when there are no real anchors. If you take citizenship away and basic human rights, American constitutional rights, if you take that away, there are no anchors upon which any social justice warrior can hold, can stand firm, can have a grasp. And when you have no anchors, you become a fucking psychopath. And that's where we're headed right now. And it's by design. It's by design. This is how you get a CEO shot out on the sidewalk in Midtown Manhattan at 6 a.m. in the fucking morning. Or the guy who, person ran in their house. This stuff is by design. And giving George Soros a Presidential Medal of Freedom is to applaud the manic, sort of psychotic political culture that's developing in this country right now. That's what it is. That's what it is. And they're all going to talk about January 6th. They're all going to talk about it. They're going to say, we got to remember how crazy these MAGA, people are. Commemorate. We want to commemorate the January 6th protesters. We want to make sure that Donald Trump's first days in office are to right the injustice done against these January 6th protesters. You got the Freedom Fund, Kamala Harris, George Soros, bailing out criminals that had nothing to do with George Floyd protests whatsoever. These people were just getting bailed out just because. And okay, posting bail, and see, this is the part of the narrative is, okay, the Black Lives Matter protesters saying, hey, a cop got a little trigger happy, made a mistake, somebody lost their life. Am I a Roman citizen? Do you have the right to bind and beat a Roman citizen who has not stood trial? There is a ton of legitimacy in the outrage and the protests that took place around some of those issues. 100%. Tamir Rice, completely unacceptable. I'm just going to say, Completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. Toy gun, 13 years old, whatever, with 13, my son is 13, okay? Couldn't harm a fly. Now, am I saying a 13-year-old can't pull a trigger? I'm not saying that. And his parents and the community has to take some accountability as well. Don't be letting your kids out here in the streets with toy guns, because it ain't a fucking game. Everybody wants to play the rap music and think that the shit is a fucking game until you're looking down the barrel of a loaded gun of a cop who actually knows how to shoot a gun, and the shit is no longer a game. And I'm not blaming Tamir Rice's mother. I'm just saying that everybody does have to take some accountability. But the point is, for people to rise up and say, you know what? We want to hold our cops to a higher standards. Like I said on the podcast the other day, got the video of the cops showing up. Well, this is on the Saturday show. There's a video of two cops showing up to a home and detaining a mother who was white, by the way. She wasn't black. A white mother, because her kid at 10 years old walked down the street on her own, on their own. That ain't the fucking right of the U.S. government or any cops to tell any parent how much responsibility they can place on their own kid. You gotta be kidding me. So, and my point is, it's right. There are things that people should rise up and protest against. But you got to let that pendulum swing both ways, or else you're a hypocrite. And in this particular case, when it comes to Black Lives Matter and all these other leftist, progressive, civil rights-based grievances, if you don't have the citizenship that the people on the right are trying to fight for, you don't have a leg to stand on to protest any of those things. Legally, theoretically, morally. And that's what makes it so disgusting that George Soros was awarded a Medal of Freedom. In the final days of this Joe Biden, they couldn't even walk away with some grace. They had to disgrace the final days of their illegitimate regime by thumbing the eye of the MAGA movement and the people, the American people, who have made a clear choice and given a mandate about individuals just like George Soros. And they give him a Presidential Medal of Freedom to again reiterate, we're above you. We are above you. We don't even care what you really think, let alone what happens to you. We don't even care to save face anymore. I mean, somebody at the top there and the Democrat, high up at whoever that is, it could be Barack Obama. Some people, it's the Clintons. It's the shadow government. It's people behind the government. It's whoever it is, Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab. I mean, I don't know. There's a who's long list of who has influence over there on that side. Whoever, Pfizer, okay. I want to give a emphatic fuck you to Pfizer, okay. But whoever is in charge over there, you would think that they would have at least said, you know what? With everything that's going on over the past 4 years since 2020 and us losing to Donald Trump and a landslide electoral victory and kind of this groundswell of animosity and contempt for what this government and establishment and mainstream sort of political apparatus has become. In light of that, maybe, just maybe, we should hold off on giving an award to George Soros. Just maybe. I mean, does it really matter, George? Do you really need one? I mean, what, to have a ceremony and kind of memorialize, this guy's legacy, it doesn't get more arrogant than that. I mean, just from a practical sense, it's like, hey, George Soros become a controversial dude, okay? And his history and his dealings and some of the stuff that he's been involved in and continues to be involved in, a lot of people have a lot of question about. So is it necessary on our way out that we give this guy a Medal of Freedom? I mean, nobody had that conversation, which should really, it's an indictment in two ways. One, at the top, they didn't give a fuck. They're doing it to stick their thumb in the eye of the MAGA movement. And what they're saying is, we're coming back. That's what you call that's what you call an encore of the left and the radical left to say, this shit ain't over. We lost the battle, but the war is just starting. That's what giving George Soros a Presidential Medal of Freedom is saying at the high end. At the low end, on that sort of common level, they're basically telling the American people, they're telling their own people, we really don't even give a fuck how it looks. We don't care. We don't care how it looks. We don't care how it looks to the people on our own side. We don't give a shit. We can do what we want to do. You're going to follow us anyway. The people who are going to follow us are so ideologically brainwashed and sort of immersed in that worldview. You're going to follow us anyway. They're telling black people, basically, let's get down to the heart of the issue. They're telling all you Negroes out there, we could give a 90-year-old billionaire who many people in the world have on a do not fly list. Okay, he tried to crash the pound, all kinds of crazy shit George Soros has been involved in. Nazi collaborator when he was young. He could tell the story the way he wants to, but that's on the record. Hungarian-born billionaire, undermining American citizenship, lead financier of weaponizing and politicizing the death of black men for his own agenda. We could give this motherfucker a Presidential Medal of Freedom, and you all still vote for us anyway. We could roll anybody up here, and that's what really, again, back in 2021 on January 6th, the tone of how they talked about the people turned me off so much. I knew the choice was obvious. Okay, here's the line. They're drawing it. I'm on this side because the way you guys are talking about these protesters is not American. But the way they think about you black folks is even more insulting. We could roll anybody up here on stage. We could award anybody. We could give anybody a Presidential Medal of Freedom. You black folks are so stupid, you don't even know who George Soros is and what he does anyway. That's what they're saying to you. As long as Barack Obama tells you niggas to keep voting Democrat, we could roll anybody up here and give them an award. Don't matter who they are, what they've done. You don't need to know. You keep voting Democrat. That's it. As long as we can tell you that these protesters from January 6th are the access of racism that you need to fear when you lay your little head on your pillow at night, we could roll anybody up here and give them an award. And I pray to God that we're coming to a moment in this nation's history. We're approaching a moment in this nation's history where you black folks of all people will finally wake up and realize that when a George Soros is awarded a Presidential Medal of Freedom, it's given a flying fuck you to every last one of us. I pray we're coming to that moment in American history where you start to realize that the George Soros globalists of the world, they don't give a shit about black folks. They don't care about freedom or justice or equality. There's no equality in globalism. There's no equality or justice in technocratic elitism. There's no equality or justice in techno-feudalism, in neo-feudalism. There's no equality in social credit scores. Hell, half of you complain that your credit scores are already a sign of racial injustice because the credit bureaus would ding you because you're black, just because you're black. A lot of people already believe that the credit scores are a sign of a systemic racism. And now you want social credit scores? And you think that's not going to be? In what world? Have you been to China? I think we need to take some sabbaticals to China so you people can understand where we're going and where the George Soroses of the world are okay with us going. And little baby Alex, who looks like a serial killer, he's up there accepting the award for George. Amy, Kamala, AOC, Ilhan, all of them taking pictures with George Soros' son right out there in the open. Like this, like he's a good, again, what they're saying is, you all are so stupid. We could put Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion in front of you. We can program and code your algorithm so well, you won't even really know who George Soros is. And we'll march him up on stage and award him a medal, the highest honor, one of the highest honors in our country, and you'll still vote for us. Damn. Damn. The level of arrogance in that is profound. And now you all can say all you want to, oh, George Soros is not that big of a deal. It's a big deal. It's a damn big deal. It's a damn big deal. When a man is putting his own money up, his own millions up, hundreds of millions of dollars up for DA campaigns, who do you people think is in charge of the legal system? These district attorneys? When one of your sons, gets in some fight, and a district attorney comes down hard on him for some battery and assault and tries to overcharge him, and are you going to check and see who funded that DA campaign, that district attorney's campaign? And if you come across George Soros's name, first of all, you're not going to look, because we as a black community, or even a broader American community, we don't pay that close attention. It's like the judges that run. Here in Minnesota, we vote on the judges. Nobody even knows who the judges are. Nobody even knows. We have no clue, because there's the system, there's the theater that they show you, and then there's how the thing really runs and who runs it. And the two never shall meet. That's the way it's supposed to be. George Soros understands who runs this country. George Soros understands how the system works. And that's why he funded a bunch of district attorneys all across the country. He understands. The question is, do you understand? Going forward, the question is, do we understand? The January 6ers should be pardoned. The January 6th, event should be commemorated as a moment where people fled the MAGA movement out of cowardice, and some of us joined. Some of us fled, and some of us joined. Some of us saw the courage, and the courage was contagious. It's like, yeah, all I kept thinking was, oh, as many of you black folks out there who keep saying that the government is this, the government is that, and you damn sure ain't willing to show up like these folks showed up. Hell, even when the Black Lives Matter movement is a good portion of the people that showed up for the Black Lives Matter movement were white liberals, was the LGBTQ. Antifa, LGBTQ dressed up as Antifa. Black folks still ain't out there sitting in. But you want to reference Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, and then when you get your political activists at the highest level of theater in the black communities, you get these bunch of, soft belly, light in the loafers guys who are doing it purely for theater. It's like drama. It's like drama school. Being a political activist is like drama school. It ain't real. It ain't cutthroat. It ain't, Black Panthers, Stokely Carmichael. That ain't how it's going. I remember being in a town hall. During the George Floyd situation here in Minneapolis, and I said, where are the sit-ins? Where are the sit-ins? How much are people willing to really give up, sacrifice for whatever change you say you want? Let's not even talk about the details of the political change you say you want, because if we got down to the details, I wouldn't agree with what you're saying. But let's just ask, what are you willing to give up to get it? They weren't willing to give up shit. Even the Antifa is sort of soft around the belly. I mean, so, the entire American culture is moving in one direction. The real truth is we do not have the stomach for long-standing, opposition, sort of grassroots opposition of the momentum of this establishment. And that's what we have to be vigilant about. Because the decisions are going to get bigger and more dire, and the consequences are going to be greater, and the risk is going to be greater. The stakes are going to be higher. And so with that being said, we need to commemorate the January 6ers on that basis alone. There's going to be a day and a moment coming up here in the future where a real issue is on the table. There's a real referendum on the table. And we're going to need a little bit more of that January 6th spirit than the alternative. Pray to God we don't. Hopefully we don't. Hopefully Donald Trump, is the perfect instrument and this whole thing gets cleaned up here and headed in a better direction in short order. I hope so. I pray so. I would love to be proven wrong. I don't know. I don't know. I think this establishment is much deeper, much darker, much more corrupt, much more wicked, much more organized than we could possibly imagine. And the double crosses and triple crosses that are on the way are going to be of biblical proportions. Okay, don't fret. The only question is, are we going to stand up in those moments? Are we going to have a little bit more of that January 6th in us than we had that cowardice of these puppet, polite, well-polished politicians with the American flags on their lapel pins, on their suit? That's the question. So again, today I just like to commemorate the January 6th and say, if it was my decision, pardon them. Pardon them. All these on the committee are under no circumstances is violence ever an option. It's a fucking option when you missile drone strike some innocent child over there in the Middle East. It's a fucking option. Violence is a fucking option when you instigate a nuclear war in the heartland for some outdated, obsolete, British Empire, some colonial fucking geopolitical theory, the geographical pivot of history, Mackinder's land theory. Violence is an option then. Violence was an option when we marched our ass into Iraq, when we marched our ass into Afghanistan. Violence was an option when we decided to take over the opium racket there in Afghanistan and bring home an opioid crisis and all of the violence that would spill out from that. Violence was an option then. Don't tell me violence isn't an option when some American citizens decide that their elections better have some proof of fucking integrity or we might have a problem here today. Don't tell me that that's where the buck stops with violence. We live in an ultra-violent culture, in an ultra-violent society. You motherfuckers decided that when you let the scientific method convince you that splitting the atom was the only way we could prevent world wars. You fuckers, you psychotic, scientific, scientism sycophants decided that violence is always an option. Violence is always on the fucking table. And it's for you to decide, for you to draw the lines, for you to call the balls and strikes on when violence is necessary and when it isn't. Your elitism is pouring out of your fucking jowls. The elitism is pouring through your fucking gills. And it disgusts me. Spit on the floor, it disgusts me. The American people have spoken. Donald J. Trump is the choice for a reason, because we do not trust that what the establishment says has been going on in this country is really what's been going on in this country, and that's the majority of people. Now, the small minority of people like myself who pay attention closely to the details, we know for a fact that what you say is not what it is. We know for a fact that what you've been selling us is not what it actually, we know this for a fact. We can fact check you. So don't be making January 6th the scapegoat. Don't be making the January 6th protesters the scapegoat, because that shit doesn't fool some of us. Some of us know it to be exactly, and we're not scared. We're not, all you Republicans, soft belly ass Republicans, get the fuck out of here. Leave the fucking party. You go caucus with the communists. Oh, January 6th was unacceptable. Yeah, because you want to keep going to fucking chicken wing BPOU meetings and acting like you're doing politics. Scared to go in the inner city with your Bible and your Constitution. Scared to go into a crack neighborhood and say, put the crack and the guns down. God is the way. Citizenship is the way. We get our country on track. We get our country booming again. The economy, the middle class. You won't have to sell fucking fentanyl or crack. Some of you Republicans are scared to go there. You like it at your country clubs with your fucking silk stockings and your silk ties and your lapel pins or whatever the fuck else, your pensions and your stock portfolios, and you want to talk about how bad the country's gotten. Yet you profit from its decline. The managed decline of the West. David Frum, Bill Kristol, Anna Navarro, Chris Christie, Mitt Romney, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy. Oh, there's a long list. The Koch brothers, Fox News, Rupert Murdoch. The list goes on and on and on. Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, George Bush, George Sr. All of you profited off the managed decline of this country, and you sit at your country clubs and you got opinions about why the country is so bad, and oftentimes it ends up falling on black and brown communities. Oh, the black people are ruining the country. Yeah, a good story to tell for a bunch of fucking Robert Baron robbers. A nice story to tell to your Fox News constituents that black people are the reason that the country's in decay and decline. No, motherfucker, you all went over there. I said it the other day. You know, you got the Green Beret, and we're going to cover this story more on Wednesday. I want to get into this story, you know, with this Las Vegas Trump Tower explosion some more on Wednesday with some new information that's come out, and we're going to talk about it. But what did you get for your war in Afghanistan? You got an opioid crisis. That's what you fucking got. That's what you got for your war in Afghanistan. $6 trillion we brought home an opioid crisis. We end up leaving $100 billion worth of equipment, and we've armed the Taliban now, so heavily that now they're extorting us for millions of dollars a week, according to some CIA reports. Now they're saying we're going to kill innocent Afghani civilians if you guys don't pay, because we're in charge now. Ransom. They're holding their own people ransom. And that says something about who they are, but that doesn't mean that we should have went over there in the first place. And what we go over there for, really? Natural resources. That's what we went over there for. We went over there for oil. We went over there for poppy. We went over there for geopolitical power. We went over there to uphold the dollar empire. We went over there to protect the territorial integrity and interest of Europe. We went over there to beat our chest. Big bad America. Can't even make sure our own elections are secure. Can't even call the balls and strikes around basic American issues like the integrity of our elections and the value of our citizenship, the fundamental fabric and bedrock of our citizenship. And we want to go tell the Afghanis how to fucking live? We got to check ourselves. And the first way we get to check ourselves today is to commemorate the protesters of January 6th and recognize that at this moment in American history, we need more January 6th in us than not. We need more January 6er protest in us than we need uniparty globalist DC elite. Put me with the January 6ers. Put me with the protesters. Put me with the people. Because one thing is for sure, two things are for certain. The elite establishment knows exactly what they're doing. They are not confused. They are not uneducated. They are not unaware. They are not without knowledge and information. They have the information. They have the knowledge. They've made a conscious choice to fuck the American people 3 ways to Sunday. And that is what the referendum and the election of Donald J. Trump has signified. The American people are just about fed up. Glory be to God. It's been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. You got to buy tires from somebody, you might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that is exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. Go to freepeopleradio.com. Visit our store. We got merchandise. This week, first Hebrews episode on the Hebrews YouTube channel will premiere Thursday night. I believe we're doing Hebrews Thursday night, if I'm not mistaken, so stay tuned for that. If you want to know where some of these other YouTube channels are, you can go to my YouTube channel, Please Call Me Crazy, and scroll down to the featured channel section, and you'll be able to find some of those other channels. Professor Penn, Free People Radio. It's going to be an aggregate of all the podcasts because we got more coming. AJ Barker and I think, are going to do the Last Renaissance podcast coming up here, and we got other people that want to do podcasts as well. We're going to flood the zone with content because we think we do a good job. So we're working on that. But Hebrews this week, Wednesday, we're going to do the reaction show again. We made some improvements already from last week's show, so we hope it goes a little bit smoother this week than it did last week, and we hope you enjoyed the reaction show. Saturday morning, Real America's Voice, the Royce White Show, 9 a.m. Eastern, before War Room with Steve Bannon. And very soon, we're going to do the Sunday call-in show. I'm going to be going 7 days a week, damn near. I like it. I don't mind it. I love it. There's a lot of things we got to figure out. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things we got to sort out now. But the takeaway from today, to commemorate January 6th, these people should be pardoned. They should be given an apology for the way that they were treated and for the way that the government gaslit the American public into thinking that there is no circumstance under which the American people should be able to hold our elected representatives responsible for their corruption and their lies. That's it for me. The fight continues. The people are coming. As always, Godspeed.
Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.